What I see as an emergency management coordinator is people aren't prepared.
What provisions do you have in your home in the event that a snowstorm would knock out the power and block the roads so you couldn't get out?
Oh, probably nothing.
They've never dealt with anything like this before, and they simply don't know how to.
How prepared do you think your family is for those types of emergencies?
Not prepared at all.
It can happen to you.
I personally don't think that the likelihood is very high.
And more than likely it will. What you can do is be prepared.
I never met a girl that can make me feel the way that you do. You're alright. Whenever I'm asked what makes my dreams real, I tell them you do. You're out of sight. Well, twiddly dee, twiddly dum. Look out, baby, here I come. Bring a love that's true. Get ready. Stop making love to you. On my way. Get ready, 'cause here I come. On my way. Get ready, 'cause here I come.
Be aware that almost every county in our viewing area with creeks, streams, and rivers, we've got warnings all over the place.
The typical emergencies that we've seen in the Lehigh Valley are snowstorms, electrical outages for maybe a couple days at a time. We've seen tornadoes.
Showers, thunderstorms, periods of rain tonight into the overnight hours, flooding downpours again. That's only going to get worse. If you're near rising water, be sure to seek higher ground.
The statistics of the National Weather Service tell us that Pennsylvania has been struck by more hurricanes than New Jersey. And we all know, anecdotally, that we are overdue for a hurricane to strike our state.
Creeks and streams, it's a given. They're rising. They'll continue to flood over bank, and many of them are at bank full, if not already flooded over.
In our area, we are prone to flooding because of the stream system.
Every 3 days we have a disaster, and those disasters generally are single-family fires or multi-unit apartment fires.
Sometimes you have to evacuate the whole block because of the involvement of fires. We've seen chemical spills, we've seen gas explosions, people that have had to evacuate neighborhoods.
How prepared are you and your family?
Me personally, I'm definitely not prepared. Like, I don't have a cellar full of water or canned food. It's just what I have in my cupboard.
We have a basic first aid kit, but in terms of a generator and all those canned goods, we have canned goods basically for that we eat on a weekly basis, but not really stocked up for that type of situation.
My parents are never prepared for something like that, ever. Then they don't even think about something like that.
I would tell folks to do 4 things. I would tell them to stay in touch.
There's water everywhere. The Northkill Creek nearly swept this bridge away.
Your local media is extremely important in the time of an emergency or a disaster situation because they're right in the area. They're following the information that they're getting from emergency management personnel and all of the other emergency people that are working on a disaster or an emergency situation.
Every half hour in between newscasts, I'm going to be here giving you updates, updated river stage data, so stay with us. We do everything that we can to just bring people up to speed with what exactly is happening, if it happens to be a particular storm, what the storm is doing, the magnitude of the storm, how it will impact our viewers and their families. Stay with us. Continue to update the river stage data all night long.
Radio is portable, and because most of the time it's live, we can cut in for just about any emergency that's important to our listeners. We can cut in to any part of our format, whether we're doing music or talk or a contest. We can make an emergency a priority.
They can provide probably the best information to you better than anybody else can, and that includes others you live around, your neighbors, what you may be hearing from some other sources, people that you know, because that information isn't necessarily coming directly from the people in charge of the situation and may be misleading.
The second thing is I would tell them to prepare to stay, shelter in place, to stay at home. That's usually during snowstorms of 24 or 25 inches.
I said we had an emergency where you have to shelter in place. What does that mean to you?
I wouldn't know what you're talking about.
Sheltering in place is basically staying in the position that you're at in case a disaster would occur or a type of emergency would occur, rather than trying to evacuate or flee the area.
When it came to different mass evacuations, they found out that evacuations take time, and if they take too long, that you could actually be putting people in danger. You're trying to move them out, depending what the situation is. If it's the atmosphere, hazardous atmosphere, and you figure, all right, we have a half hour, we can move 3 blocks, and you find out that you can't move 3 blocks in a half hour, and you have these people outdoors. And they found out that why leave a good environment, because your house is actually a safe environment if you close the doors, close the windows, turn off all your air conditioning and outside air, and you could actually wait out most hazards in your house.
The emergency preparedness kit needs to be in place in case this goes longer than the average 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. If a large-scale disaster was to happen today, you may not have electric for 2-3 days. You may not have running water anymore for 2 or 3 days or longer. The public utilities that we've become accustomed to may not be there, and the services may not be put back in place.
Do you know what a disaster supply kit is? And if you do, tell us a little about it.
I've heard of a disaster supply kit, flashlight and other items, but I'm not exactly sure.
I don't save water and flashlights and things like that.
What do you think you should have in an emergency preparedness kit?
For me, probably some pinochle cards, my iPod, 6-pack, and cookies.
You need to have in your emergency kit non-perishable food for at least 3 days. Water supply for each individual in your house. That's 1 gallon of water per individual per day, as well as medications.
When people lose power, it often requires them to have a different way of life, to prepare food, to be able to take care of themselves, to use a bathroom. So oftentimes stocking your home with supplies and materials that are battery operated or that are manually operated can really help. A manual can opener so that you can still open food and food items.
The best way for you to get information would be off of your television or off of your radio. So one of the things we ask you to put in your emergency or disaster kit would be a portable radio that operates off of batteries.
Another thing that you definitely need to have in that kit will be another alternative light source.
And anything else that you feel would be important for you and your family, as well as your pets, during that time of the emergency.
Often people underestimate how important pets are to a family. Families have extreme emotional attachment to pets, and therefore they need to consider their pets when they do emergency preparedness planning.
I think they would need some of the same things that we would need, you know, supply of food, water, medications if there were any needed, collars, you know, with identification, so in case they were lost, they could be found.
Copying your pet's immunization records and making it part of your immunization kit or part of your emergency preparedness kit is really important, because if you have to evacuate your home, your pet may be eligible to stay in a shelter so long as you can prove that they're immunized against rabies.
Shelter in place simply means you stay where you are. And if that happens to be a school building, then you're going to stay in school.
And if we're sheltering in place at the school, it's probably because we do not want to expose the children, the staff, and the faculty of the school to whatever's going on outside.
So the school districts and many districts across the state are looking at ways to make sure they have items available in case people have to stay for an extended period of time.
It's important for daycares to have emergency plans that during times of emergency they know where they're going to take their children and what they're going to do with them. They have preset places where they can possibly take those children, and also have ways of contacting the families and necessary emergency contacts.
Many of the area's leading employers, such as Air Products, Pennsylvania Power and Light, a number of our major employers are taking steps to encourage their employees to prepare, as well as to have business contingency plans so that the workplace itself can continue in times of emergency.
The third thing I would tell them to do is prepare to go. There are times when evacuation, leaving your home, is necessary.
If your home is in danger from some event, that's when you have to evacuate. That's where shelter in place isn't going to work. It doesn't work for flooding. There's no shelter in place for flooding because the floodwaters, you know, we don't know how bad they're going to get. They'll eventually take your home.
It's a matter of how high is the water going to come and what kind of danger does it involve. 18 inches inside is not life-threatening to me or my wife. You know what I mean? If it comes higher than that, then it could be difficult.
Please remember, halfway up your hubcaps, that's all you need as far as driving through water to sweep your car along. Please try to avoid it.
A couple inches of water can move vehicles, right? And people, they wait till it gets up to their knees and whatnot.
It can take a concrete park bench and just put it upside down. We've seen houses go down the river in front of us on that first flood. So the power of it is something that you can't imagine.
We're dealing with the strength of the water, the debris that's floating in the water, and disease.
The real serious injuries that were treated were from people that were just standing in the water or were found in the water. Injuries to feet, infections from being in standing water.
Flooding downpours again, that's only going to get worse. If you're near rising water, be sure to seek higher ground.
How did you prepare?
Well, you know that you got to watch that it's coming up, listen to the news reports, listen to the, the local WFMZ channel news to see what's happening, be prepared to get out, make sure you can get out.
I like to tell people to make sure they're aware of evacuation routes, area shelters in case they have to respond to an area shelters, alternative roadways, because most likely the main arteries are going to be closed or blocked with traffic.
I think it's important to maintain half a tank of gas in your car and to have a go kit.
Important items for a go kit would be things like a change of clothing, medications, first aid supplies, important paperwork or documentation, your address book or emergency contact lists, things that really would be difficult to do without should you not be able to regain access to your home.
If you are in prescription medicine, do you have enough prescription medicine to stay away from your home for 3 days? Do you have your prescription paperwork? Do you have your birth certificates, your school records? The things you will need if you do lose everything to restart your life.
Each and every citizen needs to have a plan for themselves and for their family members and their extended family members.
I would say just prepare your family. Just talk around a supper table. I found out that just discussing things, and it doesn't always have to be terrorism, it could be even small things. Fires, floods, tornadoes, stuff like that. Just discussing that with your family, you'd be surprised at how much your family does know or doesn't know.
Is there a way to prepare for emergencies?
Yeah, to plan out routes and stuff to your house in case of a fire or anything that happens, and plan a place to meet afterwards.
And it doesn't take a lot of planning, just a little bit. Like, all right, we have to go, grab the papers, grab the documents, grab this kit I made up, and we're out the door.
For me and my family, it's just continually having a plan in place and continually upgrading that plan, revisiting the plan, and not only that, but making sure the supplies and the preparedness types of plan that we have in place is constantly being updated.
A communication plan for a family is where you choose a number or a contact or a point person where everyone calls to check in. The area code in your neighborhood may be overwhelmed, but oftentimes a long-distance area code is not, and everyone then calls that family member, and you account for all of your family members to determine where they are and if they're safe.
If you're ever given notice that you need to leave your home in a very speedy fashion, you may not have time to run around and look for numbers posted here and phone numbers posted there. You should keep all of that information organized in one easy, efficient place.
It's very important that you have your cell phone numbers and phone numbers of friends and families, making sure that you have predetermined locations to meet friends and family in case you get separated.
The final thing I would tell people is to get involved. I think it's really, really important for folks to understand that we're all in a community, and that there are neighbors to the right or to the left of them that may be vulnerable.
If we're living in a neighborhood, in a community where we know that there's an elderly woman down the road who's needed help in the past, we know that there's a person with a disability next door who we've assisted in the past, we know that these are folks who are not going to find it easy to respond to an emergency.
I think in all of our planning and education about public health emergencies and response situations, we need to take a special look at how we would deal with our more vulnerable populations and our special needs populations.
It's easy for us to tell individuals and families to prepare and to stockpile food and medication and to make sure that they plan and that they plan ahead. Not everyone is able to do that. The best you can do is to gather what you can and what feasibly and financially you can afford.
It's easy for some of us, if there's a warning to evacuate and to move to a safer area of the community, to get in our cars and do so. But we have to realize there are people who in our small cities and towns don't have access to a vehicle or don't drive.
Don't want to alarm you, but just be prepared to seek higher ground. Don't wait till the last minute.
Being prepared is the key.
We just want you to be prepared for some additional showers, thunderstorms, periods of rain.
Beginning with the education and learning what the hazards are, and then going on to prepare your family communication kits and your family emergency kits.
You have to be prepared for the worst, and if it turns out better, that's fantastic.
A bomb could drop. You don't always know when those things are going to happen, and I think you need to be prepared just in case.
So those are the things I would tell folks: to A, Stay in touch.
Early on, it's going to be the local presence and local preparedness that's going to provide the immediate assistance necessary.
Be prepared to stay.
It may take some time, particularly if there's multiple sites involved in this emergency, for the state and federal government to mobilize and to respond.
C, prepare to go.
It's not the time that you think the government's going to come sweeping in and save us. That's simply not going to happen.
And D, stay involved with your neighbors and be involved.
It's not just going to be federal, state, it's going to be district, parishes, or counties. It's going to be local communities, towns, and then it's going to come down to neighborhoods. It's going to come down to families and individuals to be ready.
Do you think it could happen to you?
Oh, definitely.
The fact of the matter is, over a period of time, it's going to happen.
It can happen to anyone. No one is exempt from anything.
The question is, are we prepared?